Okay, hello, good morning everyone. This is Bogdan Cudzilo from TriStar. Welcome to our Thursday Windchill webinar. We're going to get started in just a minute here. I'll give people a few more minutes to log on. And today we're going to be looking at in a Windchill series, the next generation of dashboard reporting. So whether you're using Windchill or you're using other systems for housing your product development data, things like ERP systems, we're going to take a look at how you can use that data to make decisions. Give people access to status of things like changes, products. Give people access to checklists. Whether you're in the medical device industry and are regulated by the FDA and need to supply things like DHFs, DMRs, or you're in other industries governed by other industry formats and maintain a checklist for quality, things like APQP, IAG, AP, PPAP, and so on. ISO, internal quality checklists, dashboards. We're going to take a look at how TriStar is helping companies to address the issues of reporting on a lot of the data that exists in product development. It could be in different systems, it could be in different departments, but giving people just visibility to that data and be able to make decisions by getting real-time reports. And these reports could be either on-demand reports or reports that could be saved and then used in the future in reports or to make decisions. Okay, so we're gonna start this webinar. Today's agenda is going to talk about some of the updates to our EAP platform. So we're going to take a look at, who is this typically for? What is this platform? We're going to take a look at some of the updates. I'm going to try to run through some of the different lenses within this reporting tool. And then we're going to take a look at the live system, and you'll have the option to ask questions, and I'll try to answer as many as I can towards the end. I am going to run a small poll before I begin this, just to get a sense of the audience. Also, I just want to remind people, I'm not going to get too detailed on the fundamentals of this platform. There was a previous webinar back in August. That's a good refresher. It's available at tristar.com in our events section. It's also available on YouTube in our TriStar channel. So if you're kind of interested in the back end, on the background of this platform for Windchill and other systems, then you can take a look at this previous webinar. So I wanted to, kind of launch a poll before I kind of start this really quickly. Kind of asking, have you attended this prior webinar? Or have you seen other webinars on this technology? That's going to kind of give me a sense of how I should assume my presentation. So if you have some time quickly to answer that question, I'd appreciate it. Okay. Just another question. I just want to get a sense of, are you using Windchill? What kind of version are you using? The important thing about this platform is that it is multi-version supported. So even if you're on a previous version of Windchill, you can still run this I don't know whether we support Windchill 9.1. That's a good amount of years already in the past. But anywhere on Windchill 10, this should be obviously supported. So thanks for your responses. I have a couple more, just quick here. Just want to get a sense of, are you also using change management within your Windchill system? So have you configured, either out of the box or some configured workflows for change? Or are you planning on doing this in the future? Or you really have no plans because you're doing this in another system and you're not going to switch. You're going to continue using that other system. Okay, thanks for that. And just the last one here before I get into the presentation. Just a sense of, because the dashboard can pull information not only from Windchill, you can pull information from other ERP systems and other kind of internal systems as well. It could even be like a custom developed, MS Access or SQL or Oracle database that you store other information in, or even just Excel files, and kind of show that information in combination with Windchill itself. So my poll only allows me to kind of put in 5 choices. So the other choice would probably be SAP and other systems. So I only had a ability here in GoToMeeting to put these. But thanks for your responses. Let's get into our presentation. So what is the EAP? What is the dashboard? So what we found is our customers were usually getting reports by, out of Windchill, out of other systems, just using either Query Builder within Windchill, maybe Info Engine tasks. There's a Cognos module or a standalone Cognos as well to kind of create intelligent reports, format them, and also just using the UI, the user interface. There's, in Windchill 10.1, PTC added the ability for you to create reports. They're really a combination of just search and Query Builder, but you could use the UI to kind of get a tabular set of data. You can put some graphs on there, but just get that tabular set of data and then export it to another system. So the data is available inside Windchill and other systems, but then you got to really take it out and analyze it, right? Put it into the proper format to make that specific report, that specific format that you're looking for. So it takes significant effort to do that. There's business analysts that spend a lot of time kind of just managing, copying, and pasting things. And a lot of the times at the end, management often asks for hard copy reports. Right? This is usually used across just different formats, usually a PDF copy or so. But this is usually archived and used to track performance, used to track future vision, and so on. So various users, not only those, but various users within the company need some level of information within the system. So people are compiling reports for these various users, at giving different lenses into that information, and that's very time consuming. So TriStar realized, well, why don't we put in a framework to let the user, whoever that user may be, whether they're executives, in management, for the external partners, for manufacturing, engineering users, maybe some administrators within the system, of the various systems within the company. Let's give them the ability to quickly get those reports on demand as they exist currently within the system, not as something that's maybe generated a week ago. So Other questions people usually ask, especially if you're using the change system within the company, whether it's in Windchill or other systems. Questions such as, well, what processes am I tracking? What data do I need to track? And how do I define whether something is being held up or not? Or where is that object within the workflow? This is a very, very simplified workflow I have on the screen. It's probably the simplest you'll get. There are companies that have walls and walls of workflow robots and tasks that make decisions, and tracking that information is, quite frankly, almost impossible. So how do I track that? Either the actual change, the problem report, the non-conformance, the corrective action, preventative action, the engineering change itself, the change request, and the specific tasks that are coming from those objects, whether they're workflow tasks or actual change tasks, electronic form change tasks. So I'm going to go through and kind of show how that data can be shown within a dashboard portal. So this dashboard is a containerized service, which means there's no databases on the back end to manage anything. The data is disposable, so it runs within your web browser. As soon as you close your web browser, nothing is kept. So there's no files. Every time you launch that dashboard within the web browser, every time you hit that refresh, the data is getting pulled from Windchill and from other systems in real time using queries into those systems. There's no installation that is on the workstation. Now you can install it on the server and run it as a service. So when Windchill and the OS boots up, it could be running in the background and users can access it from a remote location. Or you could have users run this as a single file, executable file, on your workstation or on your computer. So this could be run maybe on a computer that's somewhere in the main area. A lot of companies have TVs in their staff rooms, in their cafeterias that kind of show some metrics out of their systems. This could be run on a computer that's connected to that. You only need to have access to Java and give permission for Java, the Java runtime to run. Other than that, it's all web-based. So there's no setup files, no backups to manage on the computer, and it's a read-only dashboard right now. In the future, there may be some ability to use a kind of contribute or approve workflow tasks on this, but today it's read-only, showing status inside of the Windchill system. The upgrade is also fairly quick because there's no installation, there's no configuration on the server or on your computer. You can delete it, reinstall it, just copy a file again, run that dashboard, and it'll always be communicating back into your Windchill server. The Windchill server itself needs a EAP communication install. So that's the only thing that happens on the Windchill server. All it is just we load a bunch of query builder queries into the Windchill query window. So when you pull up the query builder interface in the site admin utilities in Windchill, you'll see a bunch of new queries show up there. But again, you can delete those, you can remove those when you're upgrading Windchill, and this installer for the EAP common framework will just reinstall it again. So it's really a very easy to manage system. It is also using some of the common web technology and elements for managing the web interface itself. things like Canvas for graphing, and the standard queries. There are also different elements within this platform. So the dashboard itself is one element here shown as data view. There are other elements that can work alongside the dashboard. So if you need hard copy reports, the report engine is one of the elements. If you need to give people search from the dashboard to load up parts, drawings, get PDFs, get step files, IGES files, Parasolid, what have you. There's also other elements that users can add on top of this. There's also other apps that are coming. So these are all going to be built up on the same framework. There's a bundle of these, so depending on the use case, users may choose a bundle. But each of these are either separately priced or priced as a bundle and can be added on at any time. This is really a platform. So we give you the tools to kind of expand this. So you will have the ability to expand the functionality of what's being reported out, what's being connected to other systems if you have the means to do so. It's a quite open system. So typically on the architecture side, we have the EAP kind of either installed on the Windchill server, so there could be an EAP server where a user accesses it from a remote desktop or mobile device. You could have multiple servers running, generating multiple reports for different departments. Some departments may want to see data a certain way. Other departmental users may want to see a simplified version of that data. So there might be another interface that's communicating into Windchill, extracting only that information that they're interested in. There could also be this other users or departments, instead of installing that server or that executable on the Windchill server, you can have this run externally. So it could be installed on a client and then just using some of the Windchill calls, the query builder reports, communicating with the Windchill database. Hard copy reporting can also be taken out, especially from within the dashboard itself. So the dashboards will dynamically display information and give you a snapshot of when you request it at that time. But there's also a reporting functionality that gives you an extra icon that lets you, kind of create a hard copy, which is usually a PDF, that shows you that information from the dashboard, whether, let's say, it's on a specific ECN or a specific task or product or page, more into a report format. Okay, so let me kind of pull up one example dashboard. This one here is going to be a dashboard showing some information for the medical device industry. So within our system, we have several products, and you can either query a single product or you can query the whole Windchill system. You can also query a bill of material specifically. You can query a collection item or baseline. So if you create a baseline of a few components or put a whole bunch of components on a collection in Windchill, and a collection is just an object, it's a managed baseline. But you can then report out on all the objects on that collection, whether they're parts, drawings, CAD models, changes, quality items, whatever object exists in Windchill, requirements can be put onto the collection and displayed in the dashboard. And the dashboard can be configured to display this in different ways. The two common ways are drafts and data tables. So let's take a look at an example dashboard. Here I have a medical device dashboard, which I'm going to log into the system with my Windchill username and password. This does not store any authentication. It is available as an HTTPS, so if your Windchill is configured for HTTPS, you can also run this dashboard securely through that. But here, for example, I have my default dashboard come up, And on the left-hand side, I have a series of lenses. So whatever I choose to expose to my users, they're going to have the ability to see that information here. I'm interested in looking at the DHF DMR for a specific product. So I'm going to select one of these products within my Windchill system. So in this case, I have a sample medical device product. And this my Windchill installation is not local. It's somewhere in our TriStar headquarters in Phoenix. So this is pulling data over the internet, and it's fairly quick. You can pull in hundreds of thousands of data points in just a few seconds. So it's not like your old, Windchill info engine queries that take a long time and put SQL or Oracle database into 100% utilization for a few minutes and everyone else is slowing down. These are very fast queries that execute and deliver information out of the system. So here, for example, I'm looking at the prior month data. I can filter this and take a look at all previous data that's been generated. I can also look, so this is this product itself. I can also take a look at specific collections or snapshots. So for example, if I have a specific DHF within this product, maybe there's multiple DHF, I can select that collection itself, and the DHF is just a collection. That's going to just give me information about that specific DHF. All right, so the standard categories in the DHF format are shown, and shows me how many of these objects or parts or drawings that I'm tracking, whatever I am tracking, is shown in these categories. And of course, my parts, my documents, how many changes are related to that DHF is also being tracked. So whether these are ECNs or other types of changes, you can also track things like problem reports and so on. So these are types of changes. There's a couple of CAPA requests. There's 7 complaints. There's 2 change notices and 5 non-conformances that exist as part of this product. So I can kind of take a look at a tabular view of this as well. This is showing me the typical documents, the parts that make up each of these collections. So these are all the items within this collection. They could be documents, changes, and so on. I can narrow it down specifically to parts. I can narrow it down specifically to only documents and changes. And I can go through this series of tabs to get additional details on the various categories. We can also color code information within the dashboard itself. So if some things are released, they'll turn green. Things that are not yet released, if I'm tracking the state, will get just in a red format. Here are all the changes, and I can then filter, sort these columns based on the type of change this is within the Windchill system. I'm using also some of the quality objects like the non-conformances, the CAPAs, and also the customer feedback, which are complaint objects within the system. I can also manage sub DHFs or sub components of a DHF, like a DMR, and understand the details of which components make up that DMR. This also works alongside our medical device app within Windchill, so it just extracts information from that and presents it within this dashboard. Right, so this is just the real-time reporting, and I can change any of these graphs. So for example, if I want to see it in a different format, maybe I want to see it graphed differently, I can also take this and save it into an image file. I can also, if some of these charts are fairly small, I can show these in a bigger screen view, just quickly here out of the dashboard. So maybe I don't see this clearly enough. Maybe I can show that information here. Okay, so that's one example of a dashboard, the medical device dashboard. Another example is that I'm going to get into is another type of dashboard, and this one is for the automotive industry. I typically have to track part approvals and submissions of PPAPs. So I have a few queries that don't yet work here, but in my dashboard, I have the various categories for this specific product for that object. So not sure why this is. I'll do. Looks like there's no data for those time periods, and there's another product that that I'm using for this, but I'm just going to show some of this data in here. So here, let me choose a different product here. Not sure which one this is. Okay, I'm going to kind of skip this because this is not working for me. I wanted to select a product to show that information. So I apologize. I'm going to move on and show the other items as well. So one of the things I could see, and very similar to the DHF listing with the various categories, some of this stuff is not loading for me because I'm not on the right product. There's nothing that exists there. The same kind of category information would be seen for each of those states within that, that PPAP collection. Another lens I can get into the system is taking a look at, and I'm just going to set this back to the top item, just look at all the objects within the system, is looking at other things like CAPAs. So let me refresh this page here. Okay, let me get into my product here. Bottling machine product. So this also allows me to see things like corrective actions and preventative actions. For example, looking at root cause, how many of those objects fall into that? I can take a look at the details of those items, so I can get a table of values. One of the new things inside of the system here is the ability to use these type of pivot table filters. So for example, I can say, well, what is that CAPA source? If I just want to see it coming from a non-conformance, I can filter this table based on that. And then I can still sort it based on the number of days that are open, what site this is coming from, who's that supplier or manufacturer, which plant is this happening in. If it's a production issue, then at least here I can get that information, and then once I have it in this table format, if I do want to post-process it further, I have the option to export this again also into common formats. I can also copy this to my clipboard and then paste it in real time within my system. So that's one example of showing that additional detail inside of my dashboard. I can also show project link related information. So for example, if I'm running projects within the product or within my system, I can see project related details on the different activities within the projects, the milestones, track things like costs for each activity, for projects themselves. I can also take a look at project-specific data. If it's an APQP, for example, project, I can take a look at the various tasks, the risks, the states, and of course I can also export out that data in terms of tasks, in terms of activities within the project itself. So we can look inside of not only the products, but also the projects within Windchill. And also take a look at the change system. The change system is probably the most that people are interested in getting data out of. One of the things that we can do is perform some analysis on this data and some trending. So a lot of times people might be interested in, for example, average, min, max response times. So I might want to see, well, how fast are people getting to problem reports, ECNs, ECOs, to their tasks. And I want to see trending information. So in the past, for that specific product or for that specific design or bill of material, what was the typical response time? So we can use a calculation algorithm developed for the dashboard to extract that data out of Windchill, not only based on how long the task has been opened versus closed, but based on some predefined calculations, whether that's your definition or whether that's our recommended definition, that shows how much are people interacting with these tasks or with these ECNs within Windchill. And then we can graph that within the dashboard. So then you can, for example, perform trending. You can perform or extrapolate future or similar project trending on future demand. So here's just an example of two charts that were kind of extracted out of Windchill and shown, for example, PR, problem report. How fast are people getting to problem reports, examining and pushing them through their life cycle to resolution or creating a change? So I can see that based on a predefined time period within the dashboard, whether it's days, months, years. So inside the dashboard itself, there's also the ability for me to track, based on each of these graphs or the graphs that I'm interested in, the min, max, and average values for that specific graph. For example, aging numbers, how many days are ECNs typically being opened and closed. Now, some of our ECNs are open for more than 2 years. That would be no good. So there's 6 of these. There's a pending backlog, for example, from previous quarters, and it's kind of building up. So then I can kind of forecast, well, we have to get to these. Why are these being created? Are they being created from a specific product? Is there an issue? We can also go in and take a look at discrete states within the change system. So not only the change notices, the change requests, but also the tasks within the engineering change tasks within the changes themselves. Right? How many tasks are we creating? How many tasks are we closing for each of these ECNs, ECOs, whatever you decide to call these? Then I can kind of drill down to specific, for example, problem reports, resolution days, average response times for ECRs, in this case problem reports. Same thing for variances. I don't think there's any variances created in this product. There's nothing showing me in the data. Average response time to ECRs. I can kind of take that information out, and not sure why this is showing me that graph. Seems to be a little glitch here. But then I can also narrow this down to a specific period. So right now it's showing me average response time per year. Maybe I want to see average response time per month. So that kind of plots some data for me. It doesn't, I don't have a lot of data in my system. But it kind of narrows it down and gives me a lens into that specific time period. How many spikes am I getting? In this case, this is just specific days, the last number of days. But I can kind of filter this data. In this case, if just do it per quarter, how many of these, what are my typical response times for each of these quarters? Now, these could be days, these could be weeks, this could be, I don't think you'll use minutes, but in some cases, that time period is definable. And of course, the same thing for ECNs. And this is what I want to see. I want to have this average response time drop. So our ECN system's getting, users are getting more efficient, and our products are not creating that many complex ECNs for users to get to. And then I can also kind of take a look at totals. I can look at the data that's driving this information for each of these elements. So I can look at the data based on ECN numbers, and I can also take a look at the data based on the tasks coming from those ECNs. So I can see those specific ones. And then I can filter these based on maybe users. So for example, my tasks, I just want to see these ones specifically. And of course, I can take a look at all of the data coming from the ECNs and the tasks themselves. So I'm kind of running out of room on my screen here. But I can then also put some logic into my dashboard to color code these. So I can see, for example, only completed, or maybe just potential tasks that are still coming in from open ECNs, or ECNs that are still in implementation. So I can kind of filter through this data, or even export it out to, in this case, maybe an Excel file to post-process it elsewhere or create other reports of it. So this could be based on either the product, this could be also based on a snapshot. So here's a snapshot which is of a specific part number, which is a top-level assembly. So I might just want to see information coming in from that assembly. Right? I don't want to see this information coming in from all of the part numbers, all the SKUs within the system, just that specific one, to narrow that down. And of course, that's just looking at changes, and very similar information for tasks themselves. One typical nice thing to see is also how long are users taking to complete their tasks. Am I overburdening the users? For problem reports, ECRs, ECNs, and the tasks that are coming from ECNs. What is the min-max average for the users? And then another lens are my tasks specifically. So just myself as a user within the system, how am I doing? What are my open tasks? And if I want to get to one of these tasks, so for example, there is a potential task, I have some that are already completed here. So if I filter my tasks, so there's a few potential tasks. that came in the last few months or last few years. But for example, there's one coming in from a problem report. There's a few coming in from changes and ECRs. So if I want to take a look at that, I can go directly into Windchill. So that allows me to go to that specific form, that specific number, from the dashboard into my Windchill system. So if I don't have users familiar with Windchill, they don't know how to search for these within Windchill, although it's fairly easy on the home page, but I can use this simplified dashboard view to have users complete their task. That'll take them directly into Windchill, into whatever the task is, or whatever that problem report is, if I just want to take a look at the details of it. I can then go in and complete the details of that task and get some additional details. So there's always a link back into Windchill. There's always the ability to report out on any of these change objects. So for example, if I'm looking at the ECNs themselves, let's take a look at the data for ECNs. There's also the ability to launch reports as an icon based on this ECN itself. So I can get a report in various formats. There's 3 sample reports we have. Let's get the report on a change notice. So as I click on that icon, it'll generate the hard copy report for me into, for example, a PDF. So if I take a look at that, this is the report engine running, and I can take a look at, for that specific ECN number, what is the summary. So I can configure this to look like your current forms and take a look at what's changed on that specific ECN. Right, so there's a change analysis that's showing me that there might have been some parts that have undergone ref change. Been other parts, and here I don't have anything else. There could have been other parts that have just changed quantity. Maybe someone changed some description or renamed the part, created a new part, and so on. So that would show that type of change within that report and other reports as well. So I can run any of these from within the dashboard for the end user. If I want to, for example, do a search within the system, there's also the search capabilities within the dashboard. So I can search for parts, CAD models, documents, or change items. I can also search on specific SKUs within the system. And if I search on a part, get a kind of where used history on that specific SKU. So if I search for kind of any keyword based on these attributes, I have the ability to take a look at parts, assemblies, and drawings, and then also have the ability to go back into Windchill, as well as be able to open up PDFs of the drawings. And I can open up either these, and I don't think this one has anything, but I can open up any of these either as a raw PDF that's been generated from the drawing, or I can open up with a watermark that's applied by the system dynamically from within the dashboard. Okay, so that was elements within the dashboard, and some of the new enhancements are giving the users the ability to see this trending data, as well as the ability to filter the data based on those pivot table functionality, those facets within the tables, as well as the ability to download those neutral files like PDFs from within the system. So I know that was kind of a quick overview of the system. I hope you found this informative. If there's any questions, feel free to type them in. This platform is constantly being updated, so there's always new features being added based on customer input. And if you're interested in taking a look at this, it's quite easy to install and try. We can also assist with this in your environment. Okay, I don't see any questions in the queue, so I want to thank you for your time today. If you have any further questions, please contact your TriStar sales representative, and we'll be happy to help you, give you more details, or help you define requirements around return on investment on a solution like this in your environment. So I want to thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.